سورة المباركة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الغوي الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وهو خير الناصرين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع لذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. والصلاة والسلام على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. وفقنا الله وإياكم بعلم وعمل صالح إن شاء الله. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا لننصر رسلنا والذين آمنوا في الحياة الدنيا ويوم يقوم الأشهاد. آمنا به. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله. Elders, scholars, brothers, sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this particular ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains. He says that our help, inna lanansura rusuluna, that we will indeed help our prophets. That our divine help will go, number one, to the prophets, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, and it will go on to those who will believe in this world, those who have iman. وَيَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْأَشْهَادِ, and on the day when the witnesses are raised, meaning on the day of judgment. That the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this divine help, will be given to three types of people: the prophets, number one; number two, the mu'mineen; and number three, the people on the day of judgment. But the question is raised with regards to the help that is given to the prophets of Allah. Which type of help is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referring to? And the help that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referring to in this particular verse is that of miracles. That when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi was sent to his people, the people of Mecca, when Nabi Musa was sent to his people, when Nabi Nuh was sent to his qawm, and all the other prophets that were sent to their respected qawms, to their respected nations, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped them. And He helped them by giving them the power of miracles. And they used to perform miracles in front of these people. A question that was raised amongst the ulama was, what was the purpose of performing a miracle? When you have a prophet performing something which is unnatural, something that is beyond what is natural, something that goes beyond what is known in the world of cause and effect, what is the purpose behind that? So the majority of the scholars came in and they explained, they said that when a prophet performs a miracle, it is with the reason, it is with the cause of validating and verifying their message. And this is very important to understand. That when Rasulullah came towards his people, for example, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, he came to his people and he said to his people that I am a servant of Allah, that I am the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The way Nabi Isa alayhi salam said to his people, Inni Abdullah. Rasulullah said that I am a prophet. He came forward and he explained that the essential message of Islam is the message of Tawheed, that there is one God. And that this God is Alim, He is Qadir, He is Alim, He is Hakim, for example. And He has all of these beautiful manifestations known as the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On top of that, He came forward and He explained that He is the Prophet and that He has been given a risala, a divine message. And His divine message was to bring people towards the path of Islam. And the final area of His message was surrounding Yawm al-Qiyamah or Yawm al-Ma'ad, the day when every single human being will be raised back to life. And they will be questioned for every action that they performed in dunya. A day when every single human being will be interrogated for their actions. The people came forward and they asked him, they said, you call yourself Rasul. of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what evidence do you have to show that you are a prophet of God? And this is normal. This is how we behave in society. If someone, for example, was to open a GP down the road from the mosque, and he came and he put adverts on the newspapers, adverts on TV, for example, calling himself a GP, a practitioner, a doctor, is it right for me? Is it sensible for me to walk into his office and say, I am sick, find out what my disease is and cure me from my disease or my illness? He says, no, you have to first investigate. Is this person reliable? Is this person someone legit? Is there any legitimacy behind his da'wah, for example, going around saying that I am a doctor? Is he trustable? What has he studied? Where has he studied? Has he studied medicine? Under whom has he studied medicine? Which university was he a part of? Under which mentors did he study under? All of this is necessary for a person to understand. Likewise, if I was to go to a pharmacy, likewise, if I wanted to build a house and I go to, for example, an architect, I need to go to people who specialize in that particular field. It's nonsensical. It does not make sense for me to walk into a GP and just ask for me to be cured without me knowing the reputation behind that doctor. Likewise, when Rasulullah came and introduced the message of Islam, the people of Jahiliyyah turned around and they said, you call yourself a divine man, a man who is linked to the divine world. Prove to us that you are a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they had every right to ask this question. So these scholars came forward and they said, as an answer to this question, the people of Jahiliyyah, Rasulullah came forward with miracles, and all the other prophets had miracles with them, as a form of showing the people that this is something that I have, this is proof that I am connected with the divine realm. So you find when Isa alayhi salam raised the dead, when he blew into the bird and the bird had life, for example, when Musa split the Red Seas, yes. All of these are different manifestations, these are different proofs and evidences to show the people that they are connected with Alim al-Malakut. This was the first opinion. The second opinion came forward and rejected the first opinion. He said, no, the first opinion, although it may sound logical, it does not make sense. The reason being is because for a person to verify, for a person to believe in the da'wah of the Holy Prophet, to believe in the risala of the Holy Prophet, one does not need miracles. One needs his aql. The aql is what distinguishes between what is right and wrong. The aql has this power to know what is true and what is false. Our aql distinguishes what is true and what is false. So we don't need miracles in reality. When I, for example, come towards the religion of Islam and I study theology the way it ought to be studied, I come to the rational conclusion using my aql, using the faculty of my mind to come to the conclusion that there is only one God. And that this God is alim, He is hakim, He is as-sami', for example, all-seeing, all-hearing, He is omnipotent. My aql comes to these conclusions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has these powerful manifestations, that His power is beyond reach and beyond measure. My aql comes to the conclusion that Allah is just, that the whole concept of divine justice is part of His essence. My aql comes to the conclusion that if divine justice is essential in His essence, then by law, by necessity, He sends down prophets to guide humanity. My aql comes to the conclusion that I have been created and I have been given existence, and this is not by chance, that there is a reason behind this, and that I have a purpose in my life. My aql comes to a conclusion that Yawmul Ma'ad, that the day of judgment is rational. That you find the worst of criminals in this world and the best of people in this world, if they were to die, it is impossible for them to go into the same destination, which is nothingness. My aql comes to the conclusion that there has to be a day of judgment, a day when every single human being is held accountable for their actions in dunya. When you put all of this together, the scholars came forward and said that we need our aql to differentiate between what is good and bad. And our aql tells us that we don't need miracles in our lives. If you look at, for example, the history of Abu Dharr al-Ghafari. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, they say, he used to belong in the tribes of al-Ghaffar outside the city of Medina. They say that during his time in his city, he was one of the gatekeepers of the temples. He was one of the guardians, one of the protectors of the temples, the idols that were protected. It was his responsibility. They say the people of his community used to worship Manat, an idol by the name of Manat. They used to come, they used to perform sacrificial actions towards this. They used to sacrifice animals, and they would give fruits and vegetables and food and milk to these to this particular idol. They used to worship this idol. Abu Dhar narrates, he says, one day I was with my people. They worshipped the idol, and then they left. And it was my job to stay behind in the temple and to look after the idol and make sure that nothing damages the idol. So he said, one day I was standing next to the idol when a child came into the temple and he had a bowl of milk. He came and he placed the milk in front of the idol. And then he went away as a form of thanksgiving, as a form of gesture, a kind gesture to the idol. He said, I was standing there beside the idol when a fox entered the temple. It drank from the milk. It drank from the milk. When it was finished, it came into the ear of Manat and it urinated. It urinated on the idol. He said, when I saw this, I said to myself, how can this fox damage my idol, my God, knowing that many people in this tribe worship this God? How can a God who is the source of my living, who is the source of my life, who controls every dimension of my life, cannot protect itself from a fox? How can a beast humiliate my God in such a way? When he thought about this, he said that idol worship is not the right way forward. It's not the right way to move forward. And it pushed him away from idol worship. And he said to himself, it's only aql. It's his interacting with his mind, his interacting with his intellect. He said that it is impossible for idol worship to be the right philosophy of life. And therefore he moved himself away from his tribe, to the extent that when the news came forward that there is a man by the name of Muhammad in Mecca who has come forward with the message of Tawheed and the worship of one God, Abu Dhar al-Ghafari made it his responsibility to migrate towards Mecca and to meet this person, because he was attracted to it. Yes, he understood that Rasulullah came with a message that corresponded, that correlated with his mind. It was his aql in the first instance that pushed him away from idol worship. You take another example, the example of Ammar ibn Yasir. Ammar ibn Yasir, they say as a youth, he used to be attracted to Rasulullah, so he would follow Rasulullah wherever the Holy Prophet went. He would have discussions with the Holy Prophet. He would sit down and he would discuss with the Holy Prophet, secretly of course, because in those times, the Muslims were in the state of persecution. So Ammar used to stay with the Holy Prophet, and Rasulullah used to teach him, used to give him knowledge. They say one day he comes to his house, he enters the living room and there's a shelf, and there's an idol on the shelf. And intentionally, but seemingly, he made it seem as if it was unintentional. He knocks on the idol falls on the floor and it breaks. His father walks into the room and he sees the idol, the broken idol. He says to Ammar, Ya Ammar, you've broken God. You've killed our God. Ammar responds, he says, how can this be God if it cannot protect itself? The way how Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam destroyed all the idols in the temple. Yes? And then he came forward and asked the people, ask the big idol who broke the other small idols. This was a way for the people to wake up, to understand, to bring them back to reality that idol worship is not the right way to move forward in life. When Ammar did this, he did this through his aql. It was his aql telling him that idol worship is the wrong way, is the wrong form of worship. Now I ask the question, if Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, who interacted with the Holy Prophet, and Ammar ibn Yasir, who interacted with the Prophet, did they see any miracles take place in front of them? Did they see miracles? Did they see Rasulullah split the moon, for example, and split the tree, for example, in that time for them to come towards the religion of Islam? Or was it their aql that pushed them towards the religion of Islam? So you find here that when the scholars came forward and they said that when the Prophet performs a miracle, it is to verify their message, this concept is rejected. The reason why Rasulullah and amongst him the other prophets of Allah performed miracles was not to verify their message, but was to emphasize the importance of their message. It was to emphasize that they are connected to the divine realm. Even if Abu Dhar al-Ghafari had never seen a single miracle in his life, he would have still been attracted to the Holy Prophet. And likewise Ammar ibn Yasir, and likewise the prestige of amongst the companions. When Rasulullah used to perform miracles, it was to show the stagnant minds of his community that he is connected with the divine realm. Because remember, the people of Jahiliyyah, majority of them were not intellects. They weren't intellectual. Yes, their minds were repressed. Their minds were in the state of stagnation. That's why the Prophet had to come and show them miracles. And show them that, look, there is truth behind my message. It wasn't to verify that he was authentic and he was truthful in his message, but it was to try and emphasize the importance of his message. When Rasulullah came forward and said and performed miracles to his community, it was to show his community that he was connected with Alim al-Malakut. And this was necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show the people. Alim al-Malakut is Alim al-Ghaib, the world of the unseen. So when the Holy Prophet came forward and performed a miracle, it was to show the people that he was not a normal human being. That he was beyond normal. When he is beyond normal, by necessity, when a Prophet of Allah is connected with Alim al-Malakut, this is not normal. We're not connected with Alim al-Malakut. Yes, we are normal people. But the Prophets of Allah, they are connected. وَكَذَلِكَ نُورِيَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That Ibrahim alayhi salam was connected to the divine realms. Likewise, Rasulullah was connected to the divine realms. When Rasulullah is connected to the divine realm, this is not normal. And because this is not normal, his behavior is not normal amongst his people. His essence, his ruh, his soul is not normal amongst the people. He's different. Yes, Rasulullah came forward and he said, Ana basharum mithlukum. But he said, Yuha ilayhi. Yes, that revelation came upon him. That he was someone who the revelation was given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the question is raised, why did the Prophets of Allah perform miracles? The reason why they performed miracle was to show the people the emphasis, to emphasize their message and in their risala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And you find that today, you'll find it's a very interesting discussion. Today you'll find those who reject religion and the authority of religion. They usually come forward and they ask a very interesting question. They say, if miracles is part of the religion of Islam, then why don't you show us a miracle today? Why are there no miracles today in this day and age? But the reality is, Baba, we don't need miracles today. We work according to our aql. We live, 1400 years after the coming of Rasulullah. We don't need miracles to show that Rasulullah and his message was truthful. In fact, if a person was to show us a miracle today, if he flew around, for example, like Superman, or he was to do something which is extraordinary, we would still come forward and not believe in him. Why? Because there is no message that has come with him. By law, by necessity, this is intellectual necessity, that when a Prophet of Allah is given the power of miracles, it goes alongside a message. There has to be a risala that is associated with it. So you find that the question that is raised amongst the people today, they say, why are there no miracles today in this day and age? It's a beautiful question, a very intriguing, thought-provoking question. And the reality is that when we answer this question, there are a number of ways we can answer this question. Usually when people answer this question, I ask you a question. How do we know that miracles truly exist? How do I know that Rasulullah truly split the moon? How do I know that Musa split the Red Sea? How do I know that Isa raised the dead? How do we know this? The Quran mentions it, doesn't it? The Quran mentions it, but at the same time, if I'm not a Muslim, then the authority of the Holy Quran is lost. The Bible mentions it. If I'm not a Christian, then the authority of the Bible is something that I reject. The Torah mentions it. Likewise, if I don't follow the Torah, it has no value to me. So how do I prove that miracles existed? The answer, the one single answer that the ulama gave, and it's a sufficiently strong answer, which is the answer of tawatur. That's how we prove miracles existed. In fact, many aspects of our aqidah is proven through tawatur. In fact, history is proven to tawatur. What's tawatur? Tawatur is when a person does something, when an incident takes place, the people who witness that incident then go around narrating what they saw. I see a particular thing happen in the mosque. 10 people see a particular thing happen in the mosque. Then they go to their homes, they spread the news to their families. The families then spread the news to their friends. And all of a sudden the community, the wider global community, come to know about a particular incident taking place. This is what is known as tawatur. When lots of people witness something, then they spread that news. And this is something absolutely normal that has an effect in our society. If a person was to walk into this mosque, for example, this is an example. A person walks into the mosque and he says that this house on this road is caught on fire. And this person is majhul. You don't know who this person is. This person is not known in the community. You do not know if he's a truthful person or he's a liar. We know absolutely nothing about this person. He's come and he's said that this house on this road has caught fire. Do you believe in what he says? Not really. We don't know who this person is. He could be lying or he could be telling the truth. You're 50-50. All of a sudden, a second person walks into this mosque. He's majhul as well. He comes and he says the same thing, that this house on this road has caught fire. Would you believe them? Say, not really. You're no longer 50-50. Perhaps you're 55-45. Yes? 55 that they're perhaps telling the truth. You have more certainty. You are now moving towards certainty because two people had just given you the same piece of news. A third person walks in, gives you the same piece of news. He's majhul as well. You don't know who he is. You can't say that this person is a liar or this person is truthful. But because there are now three people giving you the same piece of news, your certainty or your level of certainty is now greater than it was before, which was 50-50. How about when 20 people give you the same piece of news? Would you believe them? Say yes. 20 people who are not known in the community have just given me the same piece of news. What is the probability that 20 people in the same time would give the same news just to lie? What is the probability that 20 people would lie on a particular piece of news? They say the probabilities are very, very low. Very low, extremely low. So people tend to what? Believe in what they say. Today in the news channels, yes, we have many news channels, many news agencies. We don't know who these people are. We don't know if they're truthful or not, the person itself. But when they relay, when you have multiple news channels relating the same piece of news, it gives you certainty that an incident did take place in the world. Likewise, when you come to the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they committed miracles, when they performed a miracle, they did not perform miracles behind closed doors and then go out in public and say, I've just raised the dead, for example. Nabi Isa alayhi salam raised the dead in front of hundreds, perhaps even thousands of people. When they witnessed these miracles take place, they used to go and they used to spread the news to their friends. They used to spread the news to their families. That news was then spread outside their cities, outside into other countries as well, until the world came to know of this particular miracle. When Musa crossed the Red Sea, when he split the Red Sea, you think there were 10 people with him? There were thousands of people with him. Yes, thousands. An entire qawm, he freed them from slavery. When these people saw Musa perform a miracle, then they spread that news towards their friends and their families. It was passed down from one generation to another until it reaches us today. To the extent that when I say to myself, how do I know that Rasulullah himself existed? As in we can say that perhaps the person himself existed. Isa, the person himself existed. But what is the probability, or how do I know that they actually performed miracles? We say we have billions of people in the world who believe in these miracles. And it has been passed down from one generation to another. And this is how it has reached us today. And this gives a certainty that the prophets of Allah indeed performed miracles in their time. Through the concept of tawatur. And many aspects of our aqidah is believed, it's established through tawatur as well. And this is something that we behave accordingly in society. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And there is no doubt, I have very little time, there is no doubt that the Quran of Rasulullah subhanahu wa ta'ala is considered to be the greatest of all miracles. It's considered to be the best of all miracles. It is a miracle, it is a miracle that transcends beyond time and space. It is a miracle that will last until the day of judgment. And one of the greatest things about the Holy Quran, and we truly need to establish a relationship with this book, however, at whatever degree, even if it's of the slightest degree, we need to establish a relationship with the Holy Quran. Because remember, when the people used to witness the miracles of Rasulullah, it had an impact in their lives. Yes, when they saw the Prophet split the moon, for example, it was the worst of the people of his community that rejected it. Subhanallah, you know, the people, when they saw the splitting of the moon, they used to come forward and they used to say that this is the works of a magician. Today, the leading atheists in the world, they say even if we were to witness a miracle take place, we would call out and say that this is just magic. Yes, the clips are there on YouTube. These people of Jahiliyyah used to turn to Rasulullah and call him a magic man, a magician. Today it's same. It's the same style, the same notions are being presented over and over again. That if we were to witness a miracle, we would show that it's magic and nothing but magic. What's the difference between magic and a miracle? That's a discussion for another time. A very intriguing, very interesting discussion. You find that the Quran itself is an everlasting miracle, the greatest of miracles of Rasulullah. To the extent they say that when Rasulullah came with the Holy Quran, people like Walid ibn Mughira, we touched upon him last night. Walid ibn Mughira, he was considered to be the a'lam of his time, the most knowledgeable when it came to the Arabic language, when it came to the laws and the rules of the Arabic language. He was a poet, a masterful poet. They came towards him, they said, Walid, do you know that Muhammad has come with certain verses, and these verses are powerful, we need you to challenge him and to destroy his movement. Walid, he said, they say that Walid approaches the Holy Prophet of Islam and he challenges the Holy Prophet to a poetry duel, a duel in poetry. They say that the verses were revealed from the heavens, certain verses were revealed, and when Rasulullah recited these verses, Walid ibn Mughira, they say upon hearing these verses, he was shocked. You know how sometimes when we experience something shocking in our lives, there's an electric current that flows through the back of our spines? That's exactly what happened to Walid ibn Mughira. The hair on his body, they sparked up. Yes, they struck out. They say he retreated into his house. He confined himself into his house for 3 days. Why? Because he was affected by the Holy Quran. Do you know why when it comes to the discussion surrounding the miraculous nature of the Holy Quran, they narrate Walid ibn Mughira's story? The reason why they narrate his story is because it's so powerful. Walid ibn Mughira was the most knowledgeable when it came to the Arabic language. It took him decades to reach that level. A scholar today, a faqih, a'lam of his time, he doesn't become a'lam at the age of 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. He becomes a'lam at the age when he's towards the end of his life. Yes? It takes decades for a person to reach that stage. Walid ibn Mughira developed a relationship, developed a reputation in his community. When he came forward and established his name in the community being the best poet, Rasulullah in a single day came forward and destroyed his entire reputation. Rasulullah in a number of verses destroyed his reputation being the a'lam when it comes to poetry. Yes, that's why Walid ibn Mughira was infuriated. He was enraged by the power of the Holy Prophet. How can a shepherd who was not known to read and write, who was an ummi, was able to come with such powerful verses of the Holy Quran? This troubled him. Walid ibn Mughira was troubled and infuriated. And because of his ego, he fought against Rasulullah until his very last breath. They say the power of the Holy Quran, when it comes to poetry especially, Rasulullah destroyed the entire notions of his community. He overturned the tables. He played their games by their own rules and he destroyed them flat out. Walid ibn Mughira and the likes of him, they were destroyed by the power of Rasulullah. And this is something beautiful that we need to keep in mind. You see, as human beings, we're constantly changing. We're constantly in the state of change. Today, I speak in a particular way. I speak better than I did 10 years ago, for example. 20 years from now, I will speak better than I am speaking today. Why? Because my knowledge is better. My knowledge is greater. My knowledge becomes superior. I gain experience. I gain knowledge. I gain wisdom. I better myself. The worst of human beings is the one who goes backwards and not forwards. I am better now than I was when I was studying GCSEs. Yes? When I go to university, for example. When I buy the books that I have to study, when I open these books, I can pick out certain chapters and I can say that this chapter is better than that chapter. I can say, for example, that chapter number 3 is better than chapter number 5. Chapter number 8 is better than chapter number 2. I can differentiate the styles of people. I can differentiate their levels of knowledge. Because this is how we operate as human beings. Our knowledge is constantly in the state of change. For example, I'm an author. When I write a book, it takes me a year to write a book, say for example. Yes? When I finish my book, what do? I go back and I proofread what I've written. So I go back to the first page and I begin to read. Then I realize that I've made so many mistakes. So what do? I make the corrections. Grammar mistakes, or I choose the wrong words to put forward the message that I want to put forward. I begin to investigate and I begin to correct my style. Why? Because in that 1 year, I've bettered myself. I've made myself more knowledgeable and I've gained wisdom. That to the extent that I can pick out my mistakes and I can correct them. Likewise, when you come to the Holy Quran, we don't find this in the Holy Quran. The first verses of the Holy Quran that were revealed, 23 years later, the last verse was revealed. Never did we find Rasulullah to come forward and say towards the end of his life, never did he come and say that now let's go back to the first verses and try and correct the mistakes that we made in the first verses. The verses of the Quran were perfect from the moment it was revealed in terms of its poetry, in terms of its linguistical capacity. The first verse that was revealed was equal to the last verse that was revealed. This is not the knowledge of a human being. In Nahj al-Balagha, Sayyid al-Razi, when he compiles Nahj al-Balagha, he picks out the sermons of the Imam that are best in eloquence, which shows us that the Imam, even when he spoke, he had certain words which were the best of eloquence and some which were normal. And this was Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. This differentiates the knowledge of a person from the knowledge of Allah. That the knowledge of Allah, it's stagnant, it does not fluctuate, because our knowledge fluctuates. The knowledge of Allah is level. The first verse is just as eloquent as the last verse of the Holy Quran. Not a single scholar can come forward and say that one verse is better than another. Not a single scholar can come forward and say that one chapter is better than another when it comes to it in terms of poetry, in terms of its prose. Yes, we can't say that Surah Al-Yasin is better than Surah Al-Rahman in terms of the poetry, in terms of the language. We can't say that Surah Al-Kawthar, considered to be the smallest surah in the Holy Quran, is less eloquent than Surah Al-Imran, for example, one of the biggest surahs in the Holy Quran. Every surah is perfect in its own way. And we need to establish a relationship with the Holy Quran. The Quran, when the people when they saw the Prophet commit miracles and perform miracles, it brought them closer to the religion of Islam. It made them attracted towards the Holy Prophet. What if we were to establish a relationship with the greatest of miracles? Establish a miracle that is everlasting, that is still within our hands. That would make our hearts move towards Rasulullah and towards the A'imma alayhim as-salam. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.